have you involved. And one of the things we're trying to get out of this is that all the guys and girls in the church are mentoring with other people. So that's a big outcome or a key thing from this. You have somebody in your life who's pouring into your life, and that you're pouring into someone else's life, which is just part of being in community, right? So we're going to do for the next little while is, I never do a 5-part series ever, but I did this time because the passage I went to has 4 key elements to it, and I wanted to do an overview. So that's why we have a 5-part package. So in the summer, people often move, right? Happens, right? Some of you have probably been through that. Whether it's summer or winter, doesn't matter. You have to pack stuff up, and you got to unpack stuff. Right? That's just part of moving. And I was in the military, I know all about it. So what we're going to do this summer is we're going to spend a lot of time unpacking stuff. We're going to unpack a particular passage of Scripture, Matthew 23, and we're going to look at some really key aspects of it with the main focus on the idea of wisdom. Something perhaps all of us wish we had, which after bad experiences we appreciate the value of, but seems perhaps sometimes, if you're like me, to be a bit elusive. It's just something which is hard to nail down or to retain or to have for every situation. So we're going to look at the idea of wisdom. We're going to look at it holistically today, and then I'm going to look at 4 elements of it: justice, mercy, faith, and humility over the next 4 talks after today. So that's basically what we're going to do. So it's based on Matthew 23, and what's happened is Jesus is in the temple. He's there with disciples, his 12 disciples, the apostles, and a bunch of followers, people who have sort of joined his movement in the recent months. And he's had some engagement with the religious officials, and now he's having an engagement with the spokes. It appears from the text that the religious officials aren't present for this discussion. It's possible they were, but the text seems to imply that they weren't actually physically hearing this talk. So what Jesus is doing is talking about what to be and not to be. And what he's saying is, don't be the religious officials. Don't be like them. Be something different. So, and the themes he focuses in are those 4. This chapter should be entitled, What Sorrow Awaits You? There are 7 different verses from verses 13 to 29 where Jesus starts out by saying, what sorrow awaits you if you behave like those religious officials? What sorrow awaits you if you practice the things they practice? And his whole point really is to say they're hypocrites. They are not wise people. That they are misleading the people who are followers of God. So that's the kind of context, if you will, the setting of this passage. Now this is not long before Jesus' death and resurrection. So it's in the lead up to those events. And I think he realizes that his life, in a physical sense, on earth is about to come to an end. And he's using this as an opportunity to kind of pass on final instructions. Kind of like, you're in the CFL football final. It's, Saskatchewan and Toronto in the final. And it's a nail-biter. It's going to be a close game. And the coaches get the team together at the beginning of the game, and they have a huddle, right? And they say, okay, team, this is what we got to do today. And then, partway through the game, they'll call some timeouts because things aren't going well, right? So they call a timeout and say, okay, team, this is what we got to do. Then they head halftime, and they're behind a couple of points. Okay, team, this is what we got to do. And then they go into the 3rd and 4th quarter, and they call some more timeouts. So it's kind of like that. Jesus is having a huddle with people, and he's passing on some, what I would call, final instructions to help get them ready for what it would be like when he's physically gone. So that's the setting of this particular passage. I started out, for those who were here when the video was playing, with a song from the 80s, because I'm an 80s guy, and they just happened to, I love the music from the 80s. There was a song by a group called 38 Special called Teacher, Teacher. Right? You guys know that song? Teacher, teacher, can you tell me? You know what I'm talking about? Okay. So the song really is a quest. It's a quest for wisdom. If you look the lyrics up, you'll see that he's trying to find out, like, what's the source of, how do I get insight? How do I survive the world? How can I be wise? And the song kind of infers that maybe a teacher, like teachers in school, aren't the best. They're not like the all-encompassing source of all wisdom, right? In fact, I've had some teachers who, quite frankly, I would never, they were just bad advice all around, right? Some were very good and very influential, and other ones actually were terrible. This song seems to imply that all the answers in life can't be achieved by going to school and learning from a teacher. There needs to be some other way to do it. So we're going to look at that today. And that's why I played that song at the beginning, because it sort of sets us up to ask that question. Where do we learn from? Who do we learn from? So today we're going to look at the issue of what it means to be wise. We'll look at what the Christian faith has to say about being wise. And this will set us up for the next 4 talks. So justice, mercy, faith, and humility all fall under this general category of wisdom. So we'll do an introduction to wisdom and look at what that really is. And this is where I really would appreciate some of your input. We'll look at a biblical perspective of what real wisdom is. And then finally, I'll offer a challenge time, as we usually do at the end of our talks. So now we're going to look at some wise guys.
Oh, a wise guy, eh? I'm going to hand you a second.
Oh, yeah, a wise guy, eh? Wise guy, huh? All right, wise guy, you lead the way. Oh, a wise guy, huh? Oh, yeah? A wise guy, huh? Wise guys, huh? Well, wise guys, what is it?
A wise guy, eh? How do you like that?
Oh, a wise guy. Wise guy!
Oh, what's the matter?
Wise guy? A wise guy, huh? Wise guy, I'll plank him. Oh, a wise guy. One of those wise dames, eh? He's a wise guy. Believe me, when I go, I'll catch up with you one of these days, wise guy, and when I do, pow! Oh, wise guy. Oh, wise guy. Wise guy, this time I'll close your school. Oh, wise guy, a head knocker, eh? Oh, a wise guy. See how you like that, wise guy? Pixie, wise guy. You wise guy, eh? You wise guy, huh? Oh, wise guy. He's one of those wise guys. Oh, wise guys, huh? Wise guys, huh? Okay, wise guys. Oh, wise guys, huh? Well, you're a wise guy, huh? Wise guy, eh? Oh, a wise guy. Oh, a wise guy, eh?
Well, wise guy, I got my wish again.
Wise guy. Wise guy. Oh, wise guy, eh?
Okay, so who are those guys? Three Stooges, eh? Larry Moe and Curly Joe, epic comedy team back in the day. The term wise guy that they use here, what do you think the sort of connotation of it is? Yeah, smart ass, right? It's a very negative connotation when they say you're a wise guy. They're not saying, oh, you're so wise and full of wisdom. No. They're saying you're a wise guy, you're a smart aleck. So that is one possible interpretation of what it means to be wise. We had a bit of fun with that. So what do we mean when we say someone is wise or has wisdom?
Knowledge.
Okay, think deep. Yeah, Vicky? They have more experience and they have more knowledge, right? Yeah, like you said, they know more stuff. Yes, Paul, did you have your hand up? No? Who did? Oh, Esther, go ahead.
They will offer you with even hidden advice.
Yeah, they'll offer you advice, right? So they're not just, if someone's really wise and never shares anything with you, like how do you know, right? Usually it implies that they're conveying that wisdom to other people who may or may not accept that advice. But there's a willingness to share it. That's very good. Yeah, that's
Like
good.
teenagers are
Yeah.
willing to accept the wisdom of their parents.
Yes, that's right. So once, I think I've told you this story before, right? Like when you're 18, you go, my parents are so dumb. And then when you're 23, you go, wow, they sure learned a lot in 5 years. Okay, yes. Think about it. Okay, yes, Ruby.
Someone who has credibility and experience.
Okay, absolutely. Credibility, and they're recognized by other folks. We're going to talk about that a little bit. That's a very important element. Andrew.
Someone once told me some people make mistakes, don't learn from others' mistakes. Some
Okay.
people, most average people make mistakes, make mistakes a few times and eventually they learn
Sure.
from the mistakes. But the wise people, they learn from others' mistakes.
Sure.
And just don't make mistakes.
Okay, yeah, so they're willing to learn. They're teachable. That's very important. You can go back to teacher. They're teachable. They're willing to actually make some changes when they see things didn't quite go the way they planned. Yeah, that's good. Yes, Esther.
They have the ability to distinguish between the right and the wrong.
Okay, so there's an ethical component to it, right? So, for example, this is great because if you look at politics, right, you see time and time again politicians who did things you're going, that wasn't very wise. So a good example, and I'm not here to promote one party over the other. I'm just using it as an example. I could pick one from any party, I'm sure. Tim Huddock, in the lead up to the Ontario provincial election, which everyone considered he was basically a shoo-in. Like Kathleen Wynne and the Liberal Party had the whole gas plant closure thing and hide burning emails and CD-ROMs and stuff to cover up their tracks. You know, it was just, the Liberal government had a bit of, it was McGuinty's government, you know, it was a mess. And the election was a shoo-in for him. Basically, that was what everyone was saying. It's going to be a shoo-in. But then he came out and he talked about the million job plan. And I'm sorry, there aren't a million people in Ontario who are unemployed right now to do a million jobs. I don't know whether he's planning to bring people in from Alberta or what. But right off the bat, he came under extensive criticism for this million job plan because it was just a slogan. There was no meat behind it. He had no way to explain how the government was going to create a million jobs. And so they lost the election, obviously, because Kathleen Wynne and the Liberals won the election. And many people look back and said, wow, his big error, big mistake in the election was that was the kind of defining moment. And it showed a lack of sort of political wisdom to make such a bold claim. It's okay to say we're going to create jobs, but a million jobs, you know, in a province of less than 10 million, like how do you do that? I don't get it. I didn't understand it. And so as a result, I think it caused him to be discredited, and he lost the election, which he, by all accounts, he was going to win. So sometimes in politics or in Hollywood, famous people, media personalities, you'll see stuff happening. You go, oh man, that was not very wise. That was just not a very wise decision to make. So that's good. Yeah, there's sort of that moral or ethical component to it. Yes, Anderson.
I think they're reflective people. They
Yeah.
have hindsight, insight, and foresight.
Yeah, exactly. They take time to think about stuff. Or they're not so busy that they've lost the benefit of that. Yeah. So reflective, very good. Take time away and just think about stuff for a bit. That's good. We talked about this a couple weeks ago about the importance of getting yourself away from the busyness of life and just taking time, whether you go away for a weekend or, like for me, it's when I go away on my business trips because I'm by myself essentially. I'm in a hotel room. I got 4 to 6 hours of free time. I can't do home renovations. It's hard to do church work. I'm by myself, and I take that time, and I often use it as kind of a time to, regather my thoughts and sort of reflect on what I'm going to do next. So a lot of my big ideas come out of those, the next steps in my life come out of those quiet times of reflection when I go away. We all need that in our life, whatever that looks like for you. It could be you go away for a retreat to a monastery, which you can actually do here in Kingston. There's a convent you can go to and do that, or a Christian camp, or whether you just go away to the family cottage for a weekend, or whatever it is. You take time out of your day or your life to reflect about what do I do next. And I'll tell you, right now is a good time for a lot of folks, because a lot of folks, they're on the school calendar, right? So like things get busy. That's when everything starts back up again in September, and then you kind of go like crazy till June, and then there's a bit of a hiatus over the summer. So I often encourage people, particularly if you're working or you've got kids or you're in school, to take time before the fall, like in August, and really think about what's going to happen next. So that's part of the reason why we're doing the retreat at Camp Iowa, is that's Labor Day weekend, right before the fall. It's a chance for people to just get away and think about what's next in life. What do I want to do? All right. Anything else about when we say someone is wise or has wisdom? Covered a lot of good stuff here. Okay. So this is Oxford Dictionary. The quality of having experience, knowledge, and good judgment. So Vicki mentioned knowledge and experience. Essa mentioned the issue of sort of the moral or ethical sort of piece, which would cover the good judgment sort of side of it. And so it's somebody who has, if you have wisdom, you have these qualities: experience, knowledge, and good judgment. This is Webster's dictionary definition of it, and it's just helpful to get us kind of on the same page in terms of what we mean by it. Now, there are other dimensions mentioned to this. So the idea of somebody who's reflective, the idea of somebody who's going to share their wisdom with other people. Those are other aspects to it that aren't in this definition, but are important as well. So who decides who is wise? Who decides who is wise?
The people.
Peter, who said that? Peers, absolutely. Your peers can decide that, right? So like we're in a Toastmasters club that meets here on Thursday mornings. I'm in that club. And and we have a common understanding of why the club exists and, you know, what it's, you know, how it's supposed to function. And there are a couple of people in the club, and I'll mention one guy by name, Steve Charchuk, who is the founder of the club. He's been in Toastmasters since, I think, the Second World War. No, I'm just kidding, not that long. He's been in for a long time, and whenever I'm stumped, when I don't know what to do, I go to Steve. I say, Steve, how do we do this? Because he's very wise, he's knowledgeable, and he's got lots of experience, you know, he's got good judgment. So he has all three of those things. He's my go-to guy when I am confronted with something I haven't experienced before. But he's a peer, because we're all members of the club, right? We're all peers. Peers are great, often a great way, you know, they're one of the groups that can decide who's wise. They're not always right, but it is a form in which they make that decision. So that's good. Who else? Jane, you were about to say something. No? Okay. Who else gets to decide who's wise?
I don't think, I mean, it's hard to say it's a decision. I don't think people can decide to say who is wise and who's not. They
Okay.
can guess
Yes?
what to say who's going to be wiser,
Yep. Okay.
but I think it's a little...
But you hit on a key point, which is individuals decide,
Yes.
right? So, for example, if you want to invest your finances so that you can make money, you know, like go to an investment council as an example, then you don't know who to go to, so you talk around, you ask your friends, and everyone recommends this one person. So you go to them and you have a talk with them and you ask them some tough questions. And you come away and you go, you know what? I think that person's really wise. I'm going to invest with them. So you get to make the decision, right? Then you might go to someone else and you ask them some questions and you get some bad answers you don't like. And you go, that person doesn't sound very wise to me. I am not putting my money with them, right? So you as an individual, us, get to decide to a certain extent who we think is wise, right? So that's an important thing. It's one of the key takeaways we're going to have for later. Because, you know, we've talked in the past about the importance of having somebody to mentor with. Well, normally, somebody you're mentoring with is somebody who you figure is maybe got just a little bit more wisdom than you do. So you invest in that relationship and you learn from them. Now, you both learn. The reality is you both learn. But that person has something you don't have that you want, whether it's maturity or whether it's the ability to resist temptation or whether it's deep biblical understanding. Whatever the issue is, you go to them and say, well, there's something about you that I'd like to grow in that area. And so you get to decide, in a way, who you think is wise, who meets that criteria. Come on in, folks. Don't be shy. There's coffee on. Make yourself at home. I'm Steve. Julia. Yeah.
Hello.
Good to have you here. Come on and make yourself at home. Don't be shy.
Want to have a seat?
Yeah. By the way, if you're ordering coffee, please don't make Carol Ann carry it over. When it's ready, she will yell out, okay? And you have to go get it yourself, okay? Because we want to take it easy. We don't want to wear her out in the middle of the service. Okay, that's good. Who else gets to decide who's wise?
I was just going to say it's subjective. It's
Okay, it is very
opinion.
subjective. Yes.
It's an opinion.
It's an opinion. The person I think is the wisest person in the world, you might think, is dumb as a board.
It's like a piece of art.
Yeah.
One person might like it,
Yeah.
think that artist is
Absolutely.
really good artist, and somebody
Yeah.
else might think it's a piece of...
You're absolutely right. So it is very subjective. Yes.
Is there like a governing body that would, like, let's say
Okay.
a succession planning, if you have a sensei who...
Yeah. Very good. So experts in a particular field. So in Ontario, the medical community is governed by the Ontario Medical, or College of Physicians, right? College of Physicians of Ontario, right? So they get to decide whether or not, for example, a particular doctor's conduct was acceptable or not, and whether they merit losing their license to practice medicine. So let's say that group gets together and they want to, I don't know if they have a chair, they must have a chair or somebody, but presumably they're going to try and elect somebody to that position who they feel is wise, right? Who has the judgment and the experience and the knowledge to lead that organization in a manner which is what they desire. So in that case, you can say, well, actually, these are a group of experts who get together, and they get to determine, in a way, who the kind of wisest people are, the people who are best suited to that position. So yes, and that's true in the legal branch. It's true in many not-for-profit groups, because they need to kind of have a discussion about who should head this organization up, right? So,
Even in karate.
even in karate, yes, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, Jane.
But that's not to say they've made the wisest choice.
Oh, yeah, you are so right, dear.
It's still subjective.
You are
because
so right.
That's those 5 or that
Yeah.
10 board member
Yeah.
opinion.
Yep.
And maybe that wasn't the
Could be a
wisest choice.
disaster. Could be a
Like
disaster.
teacher, mistakes.
Yep,
Like,
absolutely.
it just comes down to
Yep.
really opinion.
It
I
is,
think.
yep, it can be
It's
quite
all-
frequently, yeah.
And that wisdom, it's say
Yeah.
board members who pick
Yeah.
the experts, well, the experts might have a PhD
Yeah.
and whatever behind them,
Yeah.
but they're still not wise
Yeah.
in the other areas. They
Yeah.
may be subject matter experts, but
Yeah.
they don't have the overall wisdom.
Or they have all the skill sets they're
They have
required
the
to do.
skill sets.
They might be good in a particular field, then you put them in a
Doesn't mean-
management position and they're a disaster. Yeah. Do you have your hand up here?
Yeah,
Go ahead,
so
Celeste.
yeah, it would just be like also for different people. I guess it really is opinion because someone like my grandma probably doesn't know how to use an iPad
Yeah.
or
Oh, right,
something
yes.
like that. And then someone else could just come along and be like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
well, it's very simple.
Yeah.
And then you could be like, oh, you're so wise.
Yep.
To
Yep.
someone else, it could just be general knowledge.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, that's good. So the context is important too, right? Absolutely. Okay, that's good. So this is a chart, it's a triangle, which shows 4 levels, I suppose, of knowledge, if you will. It's mainstream psychology. I didn't make this up. This is very... Is that Jen under that hat? Yes, it is. Okay. Jen is in the witness protection program right now. She's driving herself. Good to see you, dear. How you been? You grab a coffee. So this is very common. It's a chart you'll see in a lot of psychology books, much like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs I showed you last week. And what it does is it shows 4 levels, if you will, of knowledge on the path to wisdom. So at the bottom you have data. Okay? Data. So data is, an example, I see someone with a key and I know that keys open doors. All that is a piece of information. It doesn't really help me get through life too much, right? But I know what a key is. There are many societies in the world where if you gave them a key, they would not know what it is, right? Because it's a primitive society or whatever, right? Okay, so then you have information. Now I know I saw Eileen put a key in a door and it opened the door. That's information. I can actually use what I can connect the dots and use this stuff. Knowledge is, that key doesn't open every door. There are different kinds of keys for different kinds of doors, right? And wisdom is, who am I going to give the key to my apartment to? All right, that takes judgment, right? That takes, if I give my key to that person, my apartment's going to get trashed because they're going to hold a party. Or if I give it to this person, they'll probably go in and clean it, which would be really nice, right? No, I'm not talking about you. So we have all these inputs of information into our life, all our life, right? Coming bombarding us all the time. And so we have data, and then you collate data together, you get information. And then with information, that can evolve into knowledge. And then eventually you get to a point where you've got wisdom. So if you look on the left side, data is sort of gathering of parts. Information is connecting those parts together. Key goes in the door and key, they go together, right? Formation of a whole is knowledge, understanding how keys and doors broadly work. And then wisdom is knowing what the appropriate time and place is to give a key out or use a key for a particular thing, right? Then on the other side, you have reflecting and absorbing under data. Information is doing stuff. Knowledge is interacting, and wisdom, again, the bottom one is researching. The top one is reflecting, which, Andrew, is what you talked about later. So up at the top, if you're wise, you should be reflecting and joining the whole of all of these things together. You've got the big picture. And they'll say that as you progress through, you shift from more of a past focus, where you've gathered all this information, you've researched it, and you've analyzed it, to a future focus where you're actually going to apply it. Right? So you say, key. Wait a minute. We don't need a key anymore. I'm IT savvy. We can use a keypad. And then no one ever has to use keys. Right? That's kind of the novelty piece. Right? It's taking the knowledge up a step further and expanding your sort of understanding. So that's a kind of a secular construct for understanding the path to wisdom, if you will. Now, there's something missing from this construct, though, which is really going to be the gist of what we're going to talk about today, and it's the spiritual component. Where does that all tie into this? So Jesus frequently had interactions with various religious officials. The Sadducees, who were kind of a rich elite group of leaders, they only believed in the first 5 books of the Old Testament. Go ahead, Celeste, you're going to say something?
I was gonna, no, now I think that I've forgotten. I learned this in religion class. Like
Oh.
There's the 4 classes.
Yes.
Like
We're going to talk about 2 today.
Oh, okay.
Sadducees and the Pharisees.
Okay.
2 big ones. So the Sadducees only believed in the first 5 books of the Old Testament, and they didn't believe in the afterlife, angels, demons, or any of that stuff. So for them, basically, what you did in this life was it. So get ahead. And they were wealthy and they were powerful, but they were religious leaders. Then you had the Pharisees, who were accepted the whole of the Old Testament and believed in angels and demons and other things, but they were more marginalized. They're more like the worker bee religious officials. So in Jewish society, you had these different groups that were responsible for different roles. The 2 big ones Jesus often butted heads with were the Sadducees and the Pharisees. They were constantly, hey, Dana and Philip, welcome back. Tu parles français maintenant, j'espère?
Un petit peu.
Un petit peu. They were in Quebec for 10 days, right? Yeah?
No, I think it's 3 days.
3 days. Oh, then that explains why you're not bilingual. Okay, you're good. If you've been 10 days, I expect you to be bilingual.
The rest of the time we're
Ah, right. Well, it's good to have you back, guys. So Jesus was often confronting these guys. And they would try and trick him, and they'd throw trick questions at him, and they'd always end up looking like goofballs, quite frankly. So that's the context for the Matthew 23 passage.
I don't get that.
What's that?
What did you say?
So,
How would Jesus?
So I'll give you an example. They thought we gotta, this guy, we don't like this guy, so we gotta give him a trick question. I know, we'll ask him what the greatest commandment is. And if he says commandment 1, then we can attack him for not saying it's another commandment. You know what I'm saying? Or if he says commandment 4, well, we'll attack him for not saying commandment 2. So Jesus' response was what? When they asked what the greatest commandment was.
Love your father.
Yeah, love the Lord with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind, and love your neighbors yourself. And then he says, all the commandments of the law are covered in those 2 phrases, which is true. The first 4 or 5, depending on which version of the 10 Commandments you go to, are about God, our loving God, and the remaining 5 to 6, again, depending which version you have. Different churches have split them up different ways, but the latter part is all about our relationships with others, right? No stealing, no commit adultery, and so on. He summed it up in 1 phrase. Well, they were totally frustrated, right? Because this is not the answer they wanted. They wanted like 7. The answer is 7. Okay, now we can attack them because really the answer is 2. And he constantly made them look bad. Now, not in the sense of being mean, but he was exposing the errors in their teaching. They set themselves up to look bad because they had sort of wrong-minded thinking about who God is and what the nature of a true relationship with God is. So this is the context that Jesus is working in. You've got a religious institution which is in collaboration with the Roman government, which is corrupt, hypocritical, and just not they're not actually achieving what God wanted for them. If we go to Matthew 23, there's a great phrase towards the end of it that says this. It says, therefore I am sending you prophets, wise men, and teachers of religious law. This is what Jesus says to the people who are gathered, right? The 12 disciples and all of the other folks who have become 12 apostles, and then all the other folks who are disciples.
Why is he white?
That's a good question. That is a good question.
He was a dark man. He was probably 5'2", 5'4".
Yeah, I can't tell how big he is in this picture. But you're right. Viking Jesus. No, there's lots of pictures of Jesus with blonde hair and blue eyes. And that's totally wrong, right? I mean,
blue eyes.
he probably had dark hair. In fact, there's a famous photo on the internet that a guy tried to construct the face of Jesus. And
I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, you're not. You're totally on track. This is good. So, and he basically portrayed a kind of a Middle Eastern man. So, more round face, darker skin, olive skin, and so on. Because that's probably what he looked like. But no one knows because we didn't have iPods and phones, iPhones, and all that stuff. Take a picture. So it's mere speculation. So, like, if you go back, we'll go back one. See, there's one possible interpretation.
No.
There's another one. There's no definitive answer.
But the thing is, he was a man of the earth. He was.
Yep.
And he was Jerusalem, and he was dark.
Yep.
He's not white. He doesn't have blue eyes.
You were totally right, dear. Well, I'm assuming he didn't have blue eyes. My guess
I wish
he
he did, though.
Yeah, okay. He can get blue contacts now, so that's good news. Okay, good. Oh yeah, all right, so my question to you is this. Who are the prophets, the wise men, and the teachers Jesus is referring to in this passage? Who are they? Andrew.
Saints.
Okay. Can you elaborate on that a bit? You're not far off the mark at all. In fact, I think you're pretty much on the mark.
Saints, people who relate, who have a good sense of what is right and what's wrong.
Okay.
They have dedicated their life to helping others and basically live by example. Show,
Yep.
teach by example, living that way. Right?
Okay.
Being an example.
Okay, so all that is correct, provided that there's an identification of that person with Christ. That's what I want to say. So, for example, there's lots of people in the world who do good things. That they have no interest in religion or they're not involved with Christianity, right? But they go out and they do good stuff. They give money to people, and they're very self-sacrificial, and they lead by example. But from the perspective of the Christian faith, it actually doesn't count for anything. In fact, we're told it's like chaff. It's like the shells of wheat. It's valueless. Because the important thing is that you're in a relationship with Christ. The pastor who helped us found this church, Doug Martin, once said, and I think I mentioned this last week, that he would rather have a drug-addicted son who loved the Lord than a son who was a successful lawyer who did not. Because we don't earn our way into heaven. This is a very important thing to understand about Christianity. It's not about how good you are. It's about the relationship you have with Christ. But if you have that relationship, then we should see some of that stuff happen that you were just talking about. So it's not wrong, but it's in the context of a relationship with God that the good things we do actually have value. Without that, they don't have value. Sorry, Esther.
I'm slightly confused about the context of this particular sentence.
Yeah.
What is the context?
Okay, so what he's done is he's just spent 33 verses criticizing the Pharisees. Right? 33 verses of basically saying these guys are hypocrites, they are pedantic, they are obsessed by fine details of the law. Hang on, I'm just going to pull up one of my notes here. Give me 1 sec. There was a phrase I wanted to pull out. Let's see if I can find it here. Hang on. Oh, it doesn't matter. So, the context here is he spent all the... Oh, yeah, I know what it is now. Hang on. Here we are. This chapter should be entitled, What Sorrow Awaits You? So, in the lead up to this verse are 7 passages where he says, what sorrow awaits you if you behave like these priests, these Sadducees and Pharisees. All right? Who squeezed the tide out of the cumin seed and the mustard seed and the little things in life, and then let families go away hungry. He basically says they're a bunch of hypocrites and vipers. They're a brood of vipers is one term that's used to describe them. So the context of this is, you don't have any wise men, prophets, or good teachers in the church today, in the Jewish temple. So I'm going to send you some. That's the context. Does that help answer that bit?
Yeah, because I was slightly confused with,
Yeah.
since the heading is 23.
Yes.
But it is actually verse 34, so I was trying to
Yeah,
look.
so I'm at the end of the
Yeah.
passage now.
Okay.
We're going to reverse engineer this over the next 4
Yeah.
weeks to look at specific. It's good you brought that up because I should have pointed that out. We're going to look back at some of those things that he criticized the Sadducees and Pharisees for, that those people are not to be and not to do. Okay? So who are the prophets, wise men, and teachers Jesus is referring to in this passage?
I think it was the apostles who was referring after it was the Holy Spirit.
But they're in the crowd right now. They're in that crowd.
They're in that crowd.
They're in that crowd.
I think you're in your own self.
Yeah,
Your
they're
own
in the
self.
crowd though, right? He says, no. I mean, you can learn from the prophets of the past, but his message right here is this: therefore, I am sending you. This is in the future, right? Prophets, wise men, and teachers of religious law. Who is he sending? In.
Is it people who will start believing?
Ah, very good. It is not a plane load of angels. They're going to land at Tel Aviv and disembark. Okay, we're here. You got the team. The prophets, religious teachers, and wise men have arrived. Big entourage, big press conference. It's not that. It's us. It's the successive generations of followers of Christ through history who bring that. Now, we're not all born with it. I mean, the first day I became a Christian, I was not wise and prophetic and a great teacher. I didn't know anything really about the Christian faith. I didn't know very much. I did grow up in a Christian home, but I didn't learn a lot. I had a lot to learn before I could be deemed to be anything close to wise. Okay, and time and time again, I demonstrate that I'm actually not all that wise. So, which is the humility piece, which we'll talk about in a subsequent week. Yeah, it's the people who are going to follow that generation, right? So they have this message they're going to pass on through generation, through century, through millennia. And those people will be raised up out of the followers of Christ. So that's what he's telling them, is there's going to be we're going to be under new management. The Pharisees and the Sadducees and the Herodians and the other groups who were running the church of the day, which was corrupt and heartless and interested in legal, pedantic detail and not really interested in where people's hearts were and actually ministering to people, that's getting thrown out. And a new world order is going to settle in. And it's Jesus' followers who are going to be these people.
What was in your heart? What was in your heart?
Yeah.
Your being in your heart.
Yep. Is that
You can go all over the world. You can go all
Yep.
over everywhere. But what about within yourself?
Then you've hit the key point here, Ken.
That is it.
You've hit the key
That's
point.
the Lord's
Yeah.
calling.
It's God working in your heart.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And
And
it has
that's
nothing
what.
to do with your texting and all.
Yeah. How rich you
You're
are,
new.
whether you're
You're
official.
new. You
You're
are
new.
new. I am
Yeah.
not new.
Yeah. It's about our heart.
And
You're right.
I may be native, but that's me in my heart.
It's one of the things we love about you, dear.
I love you too, Steve.
She absolutely, Jen nailed it. It's a heart issue. But if you look at all the stuff we're going to look at, from verses 1 through 33, what you're going to see is a people whose heart is not right with God. That's what you're going to see. Sure, the symptoms are they're cheap on tithes, where they turn away hungry people when they have tons of food. There's a whole bunch of symptoms, but the reality is the heart issue is they're basically selfish. They're self-centered.
God,
Jesus is saying,
is my heart.
yeah. And so Jesus is saying he's going to raise up a new generation of leaders
Yes.
for the church. And he's telling this to his disciples and the apostles. So
And
that's,
you are one, Stephen.
and you what?
You are one, Stephen.
Well, you are too, dear. Welcome to the club.
All right.
Okay? So that is the context that's going to set us up for the next 4 weeks, next 4 discussions, is understanding that the group that Jesus is saying will be the wise people, the teachers and the prophets, is actually the people in subsequent generations who are going to follow Christ. They're going to be raised from within. And this whole priestly order is going to become relevant because it's basically, it's a rotting, stinking corpse. It's dead. It's spiritually dead from Jesus' perspective.
I've got
Mark,
You
wait.
guys wake up.
a challenge.
Okay, go ahead. I love challenges.
You say, okay, well, the person outside the church,
Yep.
who doesn't go to church, but
Yep.
they feel they're a Christian,
Yeah.
and they do good deeds, and they live a good, wholesome life,
Yep.
they set a good example for others, and they do all that, but, gee, because they're not doing it in the context within the
Yeah.
saying, I'm a Christian, and I follow God and all
Yep.
that there's something wrong with that. But then you take the guy who does go to church every
Yep.
Sunday, or not even church, but
Yep.
says he's a Christian, practice all the same, says
Yep.
he has God in his life, but he's a miserable old
Yep.
goat
Yep.
and treats people horribly,
Yep.
is greedy, selfish, and
Yep.
does bad things, maybe
Yep.
even, steals and
Yep.
whatever.
And what do you want to worry about that
Yeah,
for?
just a sec. So, for example, or doesn't live that Christian life.
Yeah.
And you could take that into the realm of politics. So let's take George
Yeah.
W. Bush
Yeah.
Oh my God.
and the attack, right,
Yeah.
on Iraq and killing people. Well, and yet they all, we go to church,
Yeah.
we're spiritual, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. Well, that's just a major hypocrisy.
Yeah.
Whereas
How
the
about
person
your own
who
self?
isn't-
Hang on, Jen. Hang on.
the
Sorry.
person who isn't
Yeah.
going or saying, I am a Christian, but I'm
Yeah.
not really,
Yep.
in that,
Yep.
you
So
know.
you bring a great
know
point
what I'm
up, Jen.
talking
I do.
about?
So here's the deal. Let's talk about your neighbor. Let's say you have a neighbor who
Yeah.
claims to be a Christian, but he's a grumpy, mean old curmudgeon, and you don't want him as your neighbor, right? What I would suggest to you is that's a Christian who's under new management and is a work in progress. And we all are, right? The minute we make a profession of faith, we know we're not perfect. We're on a journey to get there. So what I would say is if that person continues to be like that, then they aren't really following the path that Christ has laid out for them. So the deal is this: it doesn't jeopardize their salvation, but there is a judgment both for Christians and non-Christians at the end time. And we're told that Christians will be judged on their works. So in other words, your track record as a Christian, were you know how faithful you were, did you reach out to the poor, so it doesn't affect our salvation. Our salvation is assured, but it does. There is this other judgment that's going to happen where we'll be held accountable for how we lived our faith. And I've used the example in the past that Christianity is like getting a Monopoly game for 4 at Christmas. Okay, so you get a Monopoly game for 4, and you don't tell anyone, you don't play with anybody else. Well, that's not what Monopoly was designed for. Monopoly needs at least 3 other people, or 2, right? So you share your game, and it's the same thing is true in the Christian faith. There should be evidence that you've received this Monopoly game, which is you're going to share your faith. So instead of being a grumpy old curmudgeon, maybe your neighbor goes and cuts your lawn for you because maybe they know you have health problems and you can't do it that much, right? So there should be evidence in the life of a Christian that they actually have experienced that spiritual change I talked about. And the other thing we have to note is not everyone is an overnight success story. Like there is this path. In regards to the person who thinks they're a Christian, or how did you phrase that? What was the phrase you used? Okay, so here's the deal.
Let's take George W. Bush and the war.
No, it was even before that. It's important
Okay.
because it's a very
Okay.
important spiritual element. You said they act like a Christian or they're...
Well, they go to church and they pray and they let the
But they haven't made a
outside
profession
world.
of faith.
They let the outside world. They act like they are, and they.
No, that's the
Who are
first-
you to
perform
say
that.
Jen, calm down, please.
Oh,
You got it? So I've addressed the first person,
They
the second
prefer
person.
the perfunctory kind of outside world,
Yeah.
but really they're not.
No, I'm talking about the person who you said was a good person.
Oh.
Yeah, but you used
Okay.
the term Christian in context to them. Okay, so here's the deal. So if I'm wrong on this, you can correct me. But the understanding is it's a good person. They're trying to live sort of a Christian
Yeah.
lifestyle. They're being a good citizen and all that, right?
So they're not really embracing.
That's correct.
They're not taking the. They feel they're Christian, but they're not.
Yes.
Taking the Lord encompassing.
That was the
kind
phrase.
of-
They feel like they're Christian. So there's no question that people can feel like they're doing Christian behavior. I'm not disputing that. I have many friends who are like, I would say, man, you would make a great Christian. You epitomize many of the values and the behaviors and attitudes that I would expect to see in somebody who was a Christian, and sometimes I don't, right? But that isn't what saves us. We can't earn our way into heaven. That's not how the balance sheet works. Otherwise, the cross was a complete waste of time. It was a show. It was a charade. So what Scripture tells us is, it's not the good things in life that get you to heaven that you do. It's whether or not you're in a personal relationship with Christ. And there are different churches that have different perspectives on this, but there's no way to read the Bible, like practically read the Bible, and not come to that conclusion. So churches that argue differently, like everyone's going to heaven or salvation isn't important, they're just basically saying, well, we're not going to follow what we actually, what is supposedly God's revelation. Sorry, go ahead, slides.
So is
What a
that-
great discussion today, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's heated, but I was just wondering if this is somehow connected with like knowledge and knowing about God.
Yes.
Not taking a step to
To embrace Him.
wisdom and realizing what He has
Very
done
good.
for us. So
Very
that we
good.
love
So if
Him.
I go back to this,
Pyramid.
right? You can have facts about God, right? Then you collect some. You say, well, God is good. God is whatever. Then, you read the Bible. You understand all the stories. You think, but to get to the wisdom piece, you got to join this all together. And part of the joining is understanding the centrality of Jesus Christ to the Christian message. Because without it, the Bible it's just the Old Testament, like the Messiah never came. So you're absolutely right. It's evolving our understanding of Christ to the point where we realize that actually all the good and bad things we did in our life aren't what matters. What matters is being under a relationship with Christ. So that's the perspective of the Christian faith. I'm not being judgmental with people. Everyone in this room is at a different stage of their spiritual journey. Some people might still be atheists, some are agnostics, some are what. It doesn't matter. What we're trying to do is help you get to that, get to that next level. And we do that in little bits at a time. Sometimes it takes a long time, and that's totally fine. But it's important that when I speak here on a Sunday morning, I speak truth. And the truth is, my reading of Scripture, and I'm happy to have that discussion with anybody at any time, is that the very clear message is this. Jesus, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Right? You know, God so loved the world, He gave His only begotten Son, so that we should not perish, we have everlasting life. That's the central message. If I had to summarize the whole Bible in one passage, it is God came to earth to save us. And there is a response required on our part. And that's when you hit the top end of this triangle, I think, if I applied on using this model. So that's very good, Celeste, to bring that together. Man, I love our grade 11 students.
Steve, I think Jeffrey wants to say something.
Oh, Jeff, go ahead, buddy. You said something about wise? Who was not wise? Who do you think was not wise? Those Pharisees and guys?
The ones that talk too much. And I'll be the first one to say, hey.
That's why we love you, Jim. You're engaged. That's what I want. People are engaged. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead. You and I can talk after, buddy. I want to hear what you have to say. Okay? Okay, so we're going to go back one. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Bottom line is this. I encourage you to read Matthew 23 this week. That gives you all that background context that Jen asked about earlier, right? Like was it Jen? No, it was Esther who asked about it. What's the background context? Read Matthew 23, fascinating passage. If you're a follower of Christ, my question to you would be this. What investment are you making to become more wise? Because it's like a garden. You don't put any water in it. You don't put any nutrients in it. You don't put any seeds in it. What you've got is dirt, right? You need to do something to get it to grow. So how might you become more wise in the next week or month or whatever? So there's a bit of an investment required there. So if you're a follower of Christ, do a little self-check on that and ask yourself where you need to go next. We can help you with that, by the way. If you're not a follower of Christ, I'd encourage you to be wise. Underpin your experience, knowledge, and good judgment with spirituality. In other words, a relationship with Christ. That's what's missing in the triangle I showed you earlier. It was purely a kind of worldly sort of psychology thinking. From the perspective of the Christian faith, that triangle has to be immersive, surrounded by Christ. So believe, repent, follow. Herein lies true wisdom, we're told in Scripture. So next week we're going to look at the first of the four kind of sub-elements in this passage. And the first one we're going to look at is justice, which is a very contemporary, very passionate topic, right? Features in the media a lot and in Canadian culture and history and politics. I think it's going to be a really thick and rich talk next week, and I look forward to having that discussion with you. Thanks to everyone, by the way, for your viewpoints today. I always want to make it clear, I'm wide open. Like, we like different viewpoints. And we like different viewpoints that come out. That's part of the discussion. Okay, so if you got a different perspective than I give here, please bring it out. Like, that's part of the discussion here. That's part of who we are and how we do things on Sunday morning. So don't ever be hesitant to express a viewpoint or an idea that you have. We love you doing that. Any questions before we launch into the next phase of being wise?
We miss Gerald.
Which is eating well.
Yes.
Right? We got soup on. It's some two kinds of vegetables. Don't ask me what they are. It's a creamy vegetable soup my wife made.
Jerusalem artichoke.
No, I don't think so. She said
Where's
something
Gerald?
else.
Where's Gerald?
He's at another church and then
I
he's done.
know.
Yeah, we're
There's
gonna
something else really quick.
Okay. So I'll pray and then we'll launch. Lord, we thank you for our time together today. We thank you for the opportunity to discuss some of these really deep issues about what true wisdom is. I pray as people go away this week, there will be an opportunity for them to reflect on some of the ideas we've raised today. We look forward to talking about justice next week. And I thank you for the food we have here today. I thank you for the fellowship. I thank you for the great questions and discussions and the passion people bring in here on a Sunday morning. And we just ask your blessing on each and every person here who we know you love. In your name. Amen. All right, folks? Lunch is on. Did you get some Tim?
Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you, Jen.